Welcome into our Bills draft special. The Bills just drafted their fifth round pick, number 167 overall, and it's quarterback Jake Fromm out of Georgia. I'm Maddy Glab, and I'm joined by Bills insider Chris Brown. All right, let's dive into everything you need to know about this quarterback. In 2019, his completion percentage was 60.8%. Threw for 2,860 passing yards, 24 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. His career touchdown interception ratio, 78 TDs to 18 interceptions. Not too bad. He's 6'2", 219 pounds, ran a 5.0140, and played against some very talented defenses year after year, and going against defenses like Alabama, Florida, Auburn, Tennessee. This guy can read the field and has the ability to change plays at the line of scrimmage. He's your IQ quarterback, very smart at doing the right thing when he's back in the pocket. Chris, what stands out about this quarterback?
Well, first thing I think we should say, with all of that you listed for him, you're like, well, how did this guy last until the fifth round?
Right?
The answer is he doesn't have the arm strength. He doesn't have the howitzer arm. He's not going to laser it into a tight window between two closing defenders. That's not his game. His game is throwing with anticipation, throwing receivers open, and using his high football IQ to be an effective quarterback. What does that make him in the NFL? In my estimation, it makes him the ultimate backup quarterback. So I was on One Bills Live earlier this week, and the proposition was raised, what do you think about perhaps looking at a quarterback late in the draft? And I said, I don't think you can rule it out, because there are going to be players, Fromm being just one example, at the quarterback position who may not have all of the tools that you look for in a premier quarterback, but a guy that can certainly help you if, God forbid, your starting quarterback goes down. And I think this is a guy that's probably going to serve as the third quarterback as a rookie, but maybe as early as 2021 could merit some consideration as Josh Allen's backup for the long haul.
Yeah, let's kind of revisit how we got here. So before we were on, we were talking about some needs left for the Bills after the fourth round pick. And that was right after we chose Gabriel Davis, the wide receiver out of UCF. And we were thinking corner, linebacker, offensive lineman, but we go with a quarterback, a position that we really haven't talked about much here with our draft special previews. And why a quarterback? Is it because it was the best available at that point? What do you think was going through Brandon Beane's mind? You already touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there were other legitimate considerations. I think offensive line is still somewhere where they're looking to add more youth after being pretty active in free agency with Darryl Johnson and Evan Boehm. But I think cornerback is another position. I still don't think we can rule that out. I think what Fromm presents you with is, like I said, the ultimate backup quarterback option. And I think it's a guy that's smart enough to know that he may not have the same, he doesn't have the same physical tools as Josh Allen. Let's just be honest. But what he does have is experience in a pro style system. He played in a pro style in high school and then did it again at Georgia in the college level. So I think this is a guy that comes in with a ready-made skill set for a pro style offense, really isn't going to have a learning curve. As you mentioned, had the ability to change plays at the line of scrimmage, reset protections pre-snap, very often playing in the SEC. And I just think his overall knowledge of the game, even if he doesn't play, is going to lend itself very well to the starting quarterback, who in this case is Josh Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen, a young starting quarterback for the Bills. You welcome Jake Fromm into that room with Matt Barkley. What do you think a guy like Jake Fromm can learn from these two, in Allen and Barkley?
Well, I think, studying film of the opponents goes a whole lot deeper once you get to the NFL. And there are little tricks of the trade. And I think that's a big reason why players like Derek Anderson and Matt Barkley were brought in to kind of help bring Josh Allen along and teach him all the ins and outs of studying film. Not only that, kind of knowing how to run a practice the proper way. We have to remember that when Josh came into the league, he was still very green and raw, and really didn't have a lot of time on the job. I believe he had fewer than 35 starts in college. So there was a big learning curve for Josh to travel. And I think those veteran quarterbacks, and Josh has said this many times, they helped him immensely in advancing his game. Jake Fromm, I saw one coach of his quoted as saying, he's a 31-year-old brain in a 21-year-old body.
Oh.
That's how advanced his mental game is at the quarterback position. And so, I don't want to predict too many things here, but I think as early as 2021, this is a kid that's going to be meriting consideration to be a backup quarterback. I'll be shocked in 15 years if this guy is not a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator somewhere in the league. He's that sharp.
So we're talking about his IQ, and it makes me think he's going to learn from Allen and Barkley, but he'll probably be able to teach Josh Allen some things as well coming out of the SEC, playing against some really good competition. Were you shocked that he dropped to where he did? It was the big talk was where's Jake Fromm going to go at this point? Where is he going to go? When is he going to go off the board? And I was looking at ESPN's best available, and Jake Fromm was number one for quite some time.
he was on it for a while. Yeah, you're right. I think what was very vexing for NFL GMs is they know what he is, but how do you accurately establish a value for a guy who long range is probably going to be a backup in the league? Mm-hmm. Do you use a day 2 pick on that? Probably not. All right, well, where on day 3 is the value appropriate? And I think the Bills feel we're here in the latter stages of round 5. He's probably not going to get to round 6. We think a lot of this player, and we feel maybe not as a rookie, but maybe a 2-3 years down the line, if God forbid Josh Allen goes down to an injury and we lose him for a month, this is a guy that can get us through a stretch like that and maybe go 2-2 or go 3-1. We're not going to have to scrap the entire offense because we can adjust with him and he can make enough plays in his own way to kind of carry us through and give us enough offense where we can squeeze out a couple of wins while our starting quarterback's on the shelf. They thought the appropriate value here was late 5th round. And here he is, now Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, our 5th round pick, we have 3 more, 2 in the 6th, 1 in the 7th. So, Chris, what remains in your mind?
I'm going to keep banging the drum for a cornerback here.
Corner!
I'm banging the drum for a cornerback. I haven't really taken a look at what's going on the board here. Day 3 is so tough, isn't it? Like these players are coming off the board. It's like you're doing some work on your laptop. You look up and it's like 10 people came off and now you're scrambling to catch up. It's like you need a draft jockey to kind of track these all down as fast as you can on paper. But yeah, I think a corner is a guy that they'd have to look at. I think now on offensive line, more of the value tends to be on the interior. So maybe you're looking for a guard to provide some depth there. And I still wouldn't rule out linebacker, get another player for a depth purpose. And that's pretty much where it sits for them. They're in pretty good shape when you consider everything here, Maddy, quite frankly. But yeah, I'm gonna bang the drum for the corner one more time here, and we'll see if we get one in these last few picks.
I'm going to say that as well. I'd like to see a corner be able to provide some depth to this team. Okay, before we get to what Gabriel Davis said on his conference call, I want to touch on this quickly. The Dolphins traded for Matt Breida from the 49ers. I mean, this is somebody who did quite a bit for the 49ers last season, and towards the end of the season, they could rely on him in a lot of different situations. Are the Dolphins becoming more and more scary as they continue to add to that team?
Yeah, they've dramatically reshaped their roster. And I think that was the overwhelming anticipation that they would do that when you're armed with what ended up being 15 draft choices. Now it's probably less than that after this trade for Breida. But you look at what they added in free agency, spending a boatload of cash there, and then the draft and what they did on the first 2 days, addressing a lot of their need positions. We said they had to get 2 offensive linemen, 2 safeties. They had to get their quarterback, obviously, and a host of other positions. Well, they got their 2 offensive linemen. I really like Austin Jackson and Robert Hunt. Those are 2 excellent linemen that some people had in their top 75 players, and they get both of those guys. Igbenogany was a little bit of a mystery pick for me by them, but Raekwon Davis, big defensive tackle. They needed an interior defensive lineman. They get that in Davis. And then Brandon Jones, the kid from Texas, I really liked him a lot. I think he was a 3-year starter down there, just a playmaking type safety that can also fill up in the box against the run and is a sure tackler. So you knew they were going to have plenty of opportunity to enhance their roster. I think they've done an excellent job down there, Chris Greer and Brian Flores. So you look at 2020, and if you want to lay early odds, I think it's Buffalo and Miami in the top half right now.
Definitely. So we were on a conference call with Gabriel Davis. We didn't catch it live because that's when we were discussing the pick. But he said a lot in that conference call. I thought it was interesting to hear him talk about how the Buffalo Bills showed interest from the very start. They talked to him pre-combine, during the combine. He said they had a great Zoom call post-combine where they started to go through some different type of plays and how he could fit into that Buffalo Bills offense. What else were you impressed by on his conference call, Chris?
Well, I wrote this with respect to day 2 in the draft for the Bills, how AJ Epinesa and Zach Moss represented power and physicality as part of their makeup as football players. Gabriel Davis, lump him right in with that group. He said as much in the conference call because somebody asked him what his favorite route is to run.
Yeah.
Give me the 3rd and 3 or 4th and 2 big boy slant. I'm going to take a lick, but I'm going to make the play because that's who I am as a receiver. And that is who he is. Very good in contested catch situations. He's got that my ball mentality. If the ball's in the air and I'm anywhere near it, it's mine. It's nobody else's. And I think he plays that way. And I know he goes 6'2" and 216, and there's certainly receivers in this draft who are taller and heavier, but he plays bigger than his 6'2" frame. I think in the red zone, this is a guy that could potentially be part of those packages to make some plays, fade balls in the back corner, shielding a defender from the football to make a play. That's what this kid can do. So he fits right in with what I felt was a growing theme in this draft for the Bills, which was get physical, pound you type players to pound opponents into submission.
Yeah, he admitted he doesn't know too much about the Buffalo Bills, but did talk a little bit about Josh Allen and how he's a competitor and wants to win and shows that every time he steps out onto the field. So joining a pretty talented wide receiver room as well. He spoke about being able to play with Stephon Diggs and how tough it will be to last and make it onto a roster with a wide receiver room like that. He said, hey, I come to the NFL because I want to compete for a spot.
Right. And he also said, to his credit, that, he has some special teams experience. He knows that's probably going to be something that he's going to have to undertake, and said he was on kickoff coverage, said he was on punt coverage, did some blocking in the return game. And that's another thing too, Maddy, just to go back to my whole theme on physicality and power players. The Bills need bigger receivers for a couple of reasons, not just targets in the red zone, but also to block in the run game. You need some guys with some beef behind their pads to sustain blocks when running backs get to the second level, whether it's Zach Moss or Devin Singletary or TJ Yeldon. When they get to the second level, you need a receiver downfield to sustain their block long enough to let that guy pass by and get another 10, 15 yards before he's brought down to the turf. So Gabriel Davis checks that box as well for Buffalo.
I like this trend that we're seeing some powerful players heading to the Buffalo Bills, including quarterback Jake Fromm with that 5th round pick, number 167. We are going to wrap it up here. Still 2 rounds to go, 6 and 7. So stick with us right here. We will be back to analyze all of those picks and talk about how they fit onto this roster and what 2020 is going to look like with these guys on the team. We'll see you soon.